Oh, wait. Okay. So 1 second. Let me just make sure my Twitter is live too. It's I'm on like 6 different platforms, and then whenever I click on something, I'm just like having a heart attack. Oh no, Twitter is not working today. I guess okay, yeah, we'll just go without Twitter and I'll repurpose on Twitter. But okay.
Okay.
Hi Jay, welcome to Venture with Grace.
Thanks for having me, Grace.
Okay, to start the show, I would love to say that like I feel like you guys are one of the most exciting like video AI company right now. And to start the show, like I think you moved to the US to see your uncle and then basically kind of
Mm,
like live with him since after I don't know, like age 10 or something. So like maybe we
yeah.
could start there on like, your immigration story as well as like, how like you met your co-founders at the military, and why don't we talk about like what were some core lessons that you've learned early on in your career that you kind of took later on to kind of
Yeah.
your founder journey.
Oh boy. Yeah. I'll try to make it entertaining. But yeah, well thanks for having me. Jay, one of the co-founders and CEO of 12 Labs. We build video foundation models for enterprise. I guess like uh yeah, where to even begin? So I was born in Seoul, South Korea. Just regular kid, likes to go out and play soccer. Wasn't particularly academic, right? I think you have like this some stereotypes about like Korean kids being really really good at math or science or something like that. But I wasn't particularly interested in academics like when I was 10. So just like hanging out with friends and doing lots of sports. But you know, uh, my uncle, who still serves in the Korean military, when I was 10, he was offered to basically study for his PhD in Bayesian statistics at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And my parents, or it seems like it's a good opportunity for you to tag along and learn different culture and
Mhm.
see what's it like, right? So literally like this decision was made so fast. um we weren't prepping, and didn't speak a word of English. Just moved, right? Very different places. Seoul was like 12, 13 million people at the time, I think, and then Knoxville is just grass and ranches.
Mhm.
Right? But some of the, I guess, like earlier kind of learnings or some revelations that I had was kind of like how special and not special individuals are, right? I think having kind of like learned statistics and probability and some MATLAB coding like over the shoulders from
Mhm.
of my uncle. I've kind of he's always told me, no matter how unique things look, they all fall in a certain distribution, right? So that was like kind of like heartbreaking, but also at the same time like a big revelation, right? Because as a kid you always think that, oh, I will never die, I will be a hero, or I'm that unique
Mhm.
individual, right? That I'm gonna grow up to become whatever. But it all falls under that nice normal distribution.
Mhm.
Which was like quite interesting. Right. So that's why I wanted to like keep on pushing, math and some like OG statistical
Mhm.
learning to basically understand the people around me. I think I'm a pretty big people person. So
Mhm.
like, some of that ethos goes directly into 12 Labs,
Mhm.
right? Just making sure that we work with diverse group of people, but also know that we're all same people,
Mhm.
right? Um, so really geeked out on math and computer science ever since I was I think age of 11. Went to a boarding school in New Hampshire, where I think Zuck went to the same school, and he's made like a donation to my school's computer science program. So it had like a stellar program, right? Like intro to AI. These are like ninth, 10th grade kids learning about regression, linear regression, logistic regression, and so on and so forth. um, which is like quite exciting. Yeah, so like for me, I think I knew like I wanted to work on this space. Well, deep learning wasn't a thing, but just kept pushing. And I think like my college year, from like 2013 to end of 2016 was particularly exciting for computer vision, right? So like 2010, 11, that's when like deep learning really started to make some big breakthroughs, right? With like AlexNet and shattering records at ImageNet and so on and so forth. So like for me, I started off with like computer vision, right? Really trying to learn and understand how to scale this thing. So and naturally, I had a fascination for video understanding, right? Because like at the end of the day, I think if you were in the field for some time, you've always probably thought about data shortage, and learning methods. And for me, even today, I think the ultimate data that we should probably be able to master is video, right? It's got a ton of information that just other data lack, right? Like it's I think the humanity has been basically recording its history in videos, and if we can efficiently learn from these video assets that like we've produced over the past like 2 decades, I think we can build something capable. So like kept on pushing for that direction. Worked for a couple companies, and my parents wanted me to do whatever I wanted, but then still like go back and serve the country that I was born in, right? So the whole military thing happened, right? So I was fortunate to have joined the Korean Cyber Command. So it's very similar to Israelis, cyber unit,
Mhm.
or Unit 8200, where all the thriving Israeli startups come out. Very, very similar structure, right? Very bright academics and computer science and engineers
Mhm.
join. And I've worked on multimodal video understanding research for the command. And that's where, I met my co-founders. But, I think like I've taken a kind of view of like, oh, let's build something cool, life's fun, to like having like a mission driven mindset in the military. So like I would think that like if you work with 12 labs, or you've known 12 labs, I think there are few adjectives that describe the company. And I think like being disciplined is and mission driven is something that we hear often, even from like external folks. So it was basically really, really motivated young scientists, engineers, set out to do something critical for the country. So like having the mission drivenness is very, very important, right? And that like mentality of sometimes it defies science, right? I think one of the motto is like make impossible possible, right? No matter how low the odds are. And that really helped us build 12 labs and just think about the mission and building really cool product for customers.
Mm. I feel like it's really interesting that like you really just like took the leap, come to the US, and then like I feel like the unique military experience was also like I feel like I've definitely heard about like as you mentioned like the Israeli defense program, as well as like obviously you guys are having a really strong program as well. And I wonder when it comes to like starting 12 labs. So I've listened to like a bunch of podcasts you went on like throughout the years.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, at the beginning, it was like a really cool technology. You guys would build it at the coffee shop, and then
Mm,
co-founder and like you all like graduated from different times to build the company.
yeah.
Why don't we talk about like what was the core technology at the beginning, and then how you guys are
Yeah.
differentiated from other video search, and
Yeah.
and then we could talk about the exciting things that like I know that you guys later on like recruited like a I guess like I want to say chief business, but like someone who's like more on the business side, and then the techs are people also
Mm,
thinking about business, and then you guys obviously did a really big NFL, and like um
mm,
we could talk about how do you transition from like a tech product to like, I mean, from like a technology to a product to a company?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like generally, oh, the early days of 12 Labs was tough, right? Because as you've correctly mentioned, we all had. So so SJ, one of the co-founders, he had joined the command like a year before me. So right, so he would go home a year earlier than me, and then me, and then Aiden, my CTO, he joined maybe like 8 months after me, right? So like even to get started and have us be in the same room outside of this military barrack was a challenge, right? So like we did some, but I think like that commitment and just excitement in general to build something together just kept us going, right? So like over the weekends, so like and then we can go talk about our core thesis and core technology, but um, you know, uh, the Korean military, like you don't get to go home, right? So you live in the same barrack, you live in the base for 21, 24 months, right? And but over the weekend, you can have people come file for visitation, and you get to go out, right? And there are a couple areas where you can go and chat with your family or catch up with your friends. So that's exactly what we did, right? Like when SJ got discharged, he started bringing our laptops, filing visitations every weekend, like Saturday and Sunday, every week for like a year.
Wow.
So we were super focused because that like 5 to 8 hour window, because you get to spend time with your family from like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m., right? So that's 16 hours a week that you can work with your co-founders. So that time was super precious, so we were just locked in.
Mhm.
And coming from research background, like we wanted to build something that needs to be solved fundamentally rather than just building cool technology, right? I mean, I think cool technology is or awesome technology is byproduct of the fundamental research that we were working on. But our original thesis was, okay, it seems like like on the NLP side, language model scaling is definitely going to happen. This is back in 2018, 2017, right? When we started really kind of brainstorming 12 Labs idea. So like, a lot of really, really amazing research scientists will probably go towards, scaling language models or maybe some image models. But which means like, sadly, a lot of oxygen will get sucked out of this niche field of video understanding, right? So like, we will probably see near to zero progress made on video native embedding models, right? We see text embedding models being super prevalent now, right? But there's no like compelling video encoder or video embedding models for really large enterprises that are dealing with petabyte scale video data. So we thought that video native embedding model is going to be one of the core part of our product. And then second is like, how do we align video and language, right? Because at the end of the day, we wanted to make video as easy as text, right? So how do we make sure we give not only like high level understanding to our customers or users, to go from petabyte scale to like a couple video moments or even like a few video files of relevance, and also provide that really granular access to whatever video moments that they have or they don't even know that they have. So video language alignment, and so it was a huge part, video language modeling, right? So those are two types of models. So we now have two models that kind of reflect that thesis. But so these are just models, right? Like algorithm training. But then you would need a very sophisticated and also efficient like video processing, video indexing infrastructure to basically deal with a data that's maybe 1,000,000 times heavier than image, or
Mm.
orders of magnitude heavier than text, for example, right? So those are kind of like the core building blocks that we wanted to start working on: video indexing infrastructure, the embedding model, the video language model. And if you put them together, like it gives you a pretty awesome workflows for semantic video search or video chat, video question answering, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So the whole idea came from like, can we like introduce to the market that like we can bring a new interface for interacting with video data, large scale video data. Yeah, and we just kept on working on it. Early days were hard because like no one really understood what it means to like build these kind of models, let alone like spending a ton of compute on training. And this was like, now we're talking about 2020, so like you know like getting rid of metadata and then replace it with semantic embeddings and vector databases. These are all foreign concept, right?
Mhm.
But we had a pretty strong conviction that most of it, like, we are going to go through a pretty big paradigm shift in terms of how we turn unstructured data into structured data. And
Mhm.
this would be like powerful models that can take in videos and then generate whatever metadata, or based on like user prompt, to you might not need metadata at all, right? Because
Mhm.
these models are capable enough. So those were the kind of future that we're drawing in, and I'm it's surreal to see that it's happening in real time.
Mhm.
Um, didn't know it was going to happen this fast, but yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. So, okay, so I want to give the audience a little bit background on the video search, like I guess, like just like video generation or video identification.
Yeah.
So, I think in the past, there's a couple ways to do it. One is like to extract the text
Mm,
from the video, and then you found, like, let's say you
yeah.
want like this cooking recipe or whatever, and then like
Yeah.
just search like the text or like the speech within the video. And then the other part, I believe it's like image, like tagging.
Hmm.
So basically
Yeah.
you tag a bunch of image, like there's an egg, there's milk, there's like whatever, right? Like in a cooking video, and then they just kind of like generate the text for you. But you guys were doing something different. And can you maybe give the audience a little bit more context on like how is it different from the traditional, when people are saying you search something on like a YouTube video, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of users, like, since like we have a lot of, like, I guess is more towards like consumer based users, maybe they use Bard before or slash
Mm,
Gemini. But like, how is like 12 Labs like differentiated from these like consumer models?
yeah. Yeah. Happy to. I think video understanding is an area where a lot of researchers try to reframe
Mhm.
the video understanding problem into something that kind of felt like it's already been solved, right? Image understanding is one area, right? Like, we've seen some like fast-paced improvements in computer vision models
Mhm.
the past maybe like 10 years, right? Um, and then uh, somehow like stitch them together with audio understanding models like speech to text, right? So what ends up happening is you have a bunch of computer vision models that's
Mhm.
doing very specific things, right? Like looking at frames, maybe it's doing facial recognition or doing object detection, and kind of abstract a frame into a bunch of tags, right? And then you would extract audio and then get transcription of whatever people are saying, and you jam tags and transcripts together, and then you do some loose form of search, and you try to make sense of it, and I think that sounds like could be relatively effective, but having tried employing the same tactics, it really doesn't scale that well.
Mhm.
Right. So for 12 Labs, it has always been uh, about, can we train a model where it just fully leverages um, audio and visual information and map it into same embedding space, right? Where based on prompt. So it's like true multimodal, like any to any retrieval experience where because the audios, the visuals, and text gets all mapped into this semantic layer. um, we can interchangeably use text as a prompt or image as a prompt, audio as a prompt, and retrieve what we need pretty efficiently without
Mhm.
uh, kind of relying on fixed set of tags, right? And that also provides like developers this degree of freedom to go chase after really really big use cases. So I think just learning, like straight learning from video was like a hard thing to do, but we just did it. Maybe we didn't know better. But that just felt really really intuitive for us. And like compared to consumer, I guess, search, I think YouTube search is great, but at the end of the day, I think consumer search gets tied to that company's business model, right? So, it's a combination of search plus like recommendation, right?
Mm.
So if I search for something and if the platform thinks that, yeah, I mean, great search for A, but we think that showing results for B might help her stay longer, then like it will get popped up. Right?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, they are maximizing for your time on the platform, which indirectly maximizes time to serve ads for you. Right? So I think so in that regards, I think like our search is quite different. Our search is mostly for enterprises and developers building a video centric product that it could get used for building like these consumer apps, but most of the enterprise customers right now are looking for, I have so much video data, I want to be able to just reduce me spending weeks searching for certain clips down to like minutes. If we can do that, like that's great, right? So what we optimize for is like reduce time to search, right? Which is quite nuanced, but also very different when it comes to building, right, that system. I don't know if that makes sense. But
Totally. I feel like I've never thought about it that way as like, they really, even from the image search perspective, like people really want you to stay on the platform longer. I wonder, for speaking of business model, I know that you guys work with some really exciting enterprises,
mm,
and why don't we talk about like, what is the future of video search, or like video API look like for
yeah.
enterprise?
Yeah, so based on our video indexing infrastructure, the two models, the way we make available our models is via APIs, right? So we have three API endpoints, basically: search, embed, and generate. And we think that like and it's all based on these embeddings that our models produce, and we think that these embeddings are now like this semantic understanding layer for videos, right? And search happens to be one of the interface that we provide. So for enterprise customers, it's quite easy, right? Video understanding problems have always been a pretty big challenge for these companies. So they've probably built some sort of central repository, or have invested a ton in their media asset management platforms, right? So it's all they have some interface, like literal UI UX kind of figured out. Now they just need a better brain to process all that data. So like we deploy our models on either on their premises, or if they're one of the cloud customers, we can also deploy our models hopefully in a serverless manner soon, so that they don't have to think about procurement through 12 labs, like so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, they take the search API, literally replace it with a search bar, and start managing their assets, and search for things that they are looking for, right? And I think uh, and that whole search experience, I think, has been like quite magical for customers. And I think, it has an effect of, bringing a bunch of use cases that can be built on top. Maybe some of them they've already thought about, but like tech wasn't there, so they kind of locked it in there, kind of like a, idea chest. But I think search has been like the foot in the door application for 12 Labs, and then generate has been going really really strong, because I think I've mentioned about going unstructured to structured data, but like the only method for us to do that was just train like a classifier that has understanding of maybe like 100 different categories. You run through frames and you get text. What our generate API does is take your large scale video data, and based on your taxonomy, your prompt, it can dynamically generate metadata, right? And then basically you can output any text that you can ask it to like write poems about this video. But what you can also do is, if you have a bunch of surveillance footage and you don't want to define what illegal activity is, because there are so many, you can just prompt the model to basically output structured JSON format, where if you see any illegal activity, like I would like you to output a specific time code of that happening and the type of activity that happened, and then just output me JSON, which other language models are really good at understanding and parsing, right? So the generate API kind of becomes that whole unstructured to structured data conversion interface, which is like really cool to see. And then for really really technical folks that want to build their own version of search, we provide embed API, where we expose our embeddings to this to developers, right?
For sure. I wonder, so when you're thinking about search, embed, and generate, like which one would you say are more, from like a business sense, like more, I guess, like having more use case or like more profitable in a sense? And how do you think about like to bundle them as a service? Because I think like selling something is very different than like, will people continuously use the product, or if there's like
Yeah.
any kind of like replacement and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we
Obviously, do not give us any like super secretive data, but like just like the general direction would be good.
Yeah. So like these three endpoints that we've introduced, we think that the core kind of thinking behind building our interface, like suite of APIs this manner, was like we would like to grow in terms of revenue, usage, adoption, based on like our customers growing video assets, right? So most of the enterprise customers from media, entertainment, sports, and even defense, and like high growth startups that are video centric, tend to have ever growing video assets, right? So meaning we have like this really cool concept that we're kind of delving into, that's like video assets under management, right? Like if your video assets that 12 Labs manages grows, right, then there's a lot more opportunity for search to get hit up, right? And also generate as well, right? Like, because you will be chatting with a growing pool of content, which means more tokens generated at the Pegasus end, so on and so forth, right? And then embed is something it's quite unique, right? Because like for text embeddings, right, there's I feel like there's only so many PDF files that gets generated maybe on a weekly basis. For larger companies that could be meaningful, but it's not as like explosive, I would say, as videos, right? We're talking about like even smaller scale companies, needing to process tens of thousands of hours of content, like in like every 3 days or something like that, versus maybe like 1,000 PDF files per week. So like embed is interesting, right? Because what happens is like, if video wasn't growing, we just, embed these video assets and customers take the embeddings and there's no added value captured after we've given them the embeddings. But if the model is cost effective, cheap, but also state of the art in certain video understanding, like semantic search, what we've realized is that, they just continue to embed. As their video assets grow. So it's an interesting kind of like business model that we're also like, I mean, it's very, very new. So we're going to have to like refine and modify some pricing, but generally speaking, if we provide really compelling embedding model at a very good price point, they'll just just embed, right? Continue to embed new assets, even if they don't use our search API on top of it. Even if like customers build their own search algo, which was like really interesting to see. Yeah.
I wonder, so like since like we chat about the business model side, but I feel like you guys were like the investors that you guys had were amazing. So Lee and other like angel investors from like Scale AI founder, Invite founder, and then as well as like Sunbird founder, like so there's like just like a lot of like great founders that are backing you guys, as well as just like many Nvidia venture and all these like really huge corporations. How do you think about fundraising as a founder, and how do you build these relationship early on? Since I feel like since like I know there's like a lot of people with amazing backgrounds coming out of like Stanford, Berkeley are building an AI. How do you, I guess, stand out among the crowd?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think for 12 Labs, I think we've been fortunate in terms of partnering with our current partners, right? In terms of standing out, okay, let's start with standing out, and then maybe we can delve into like our fundraising history. But I don't think 12 Labs try to, I don't know, go for like crazy hype or viral moments. Kind of our belief was that if we have a conviction in what we're building is really core and fundamental, and someone's going to build it even without 12 Labs. I think there are type of products that just never gets built if no one works on it, versus if this is a product or fundamental technology that's going to get built because it's it makes sense, right? Video understanding system or an AI system that can understand videos at scale, someone's going to build it, right? Then it's just a matter of like, how do you abstract away like core problems into digestible pieces and start making progress, right? So first principle thinking. So for us, I think showcasing that kind of thought leadership happened, I would say, like maybe like 6-7 months into starting 12 Labs, where we participated in ICCV's video and language understanding evaluation competition. We're severely undergunned, right? Very little compute, very small team, but we were able to show some meaningful progress in video understanding, right? And what happens is that there are partners and investors who's built pretty robust thesis around like multimodal AI, right? They don't know like exactly where it's going to blow up, but like they all had some, like Index Ventures, Radical Ventures, for example. Those are two firms that we started working very closely with like since the inception of the company. And so they've made their bets on LLM side of things, and for them, like efficient AI system that can learn from videos and kind of like tackle the world's video sphere as their TAM made sense for them, right? And I think they were looking for the types of founders who's who has like first principle thinking and really making progress on the core technology side of things. So like the initial seed round really like happened quite serendipitously, right? One meeting led to another, and then before we knew it, like I didn't even know we were going through the fundraising process. Um, but one partner introduced another awesome partners, and then like that kind of grew, right? And some of the earlier advisors and the angel investors like Fei, Alex were great, right? And they're inspirational, and getting their kind of initial check mark was also quite the experience. But I think like they all kind of generally agreed, it's like, hey, these guys are like 12 people team, and they made this much progress in video understanding. This is quite impressive, right? So that's how we got lucked into meeting really really good partners. So like I think really working hard on your core problems, and knowing where to present, I think is also important. Because if you're just in the cave and like just building, and then kind of hoping that it'll just blow up, doesn't work. But ours was like, okay, we've been working on this for a couple of years, like outside of 12 labs, but it's like we have this prototype that's culmination of our thinking and our research. Let's present it, right, somewhere, and and that worked out.
I wonder, so like as you mentioned about like there's two things I thought were really interesting. One thing is like you said like solving a core problem. And like I want to start like I mean from the core problem side, I
Mm,
want to understand like in your mind, what is like multimodal AI future gonna look like, and then what do you
yeah.
feel is the biggest challenge now? Since like I feel like a lot of investors are pivot onto like AI agents, like or
Mm,
just like other applications of things because of like people think model could be I guess like very capital intensive and it's hard to have differentiation. It's kind of like the internet in the future. Like someone's going to build it and then it's going to be like, not the differentiator.
mm,
So I wonder what's your take on the AI model or multimodal side of things. The second
yeah.
part would be, I mean, I'll wait for the second part. I have so many
Mhm.
questions around the second.
Yeah, yeah, so like model alone, I think isn't good enough. Like
Mhm.
it's a table stake, right? So, I feel like for 12 labs, like we knew what we were working on was right thing to work on, because there was no available solutions out there that we could have readily, leveraged, right? So for us, it was really about like, can we handle this much data pretty quickly and run all of our models efficiently, and then build like a really good search experience, or video chat experience on top of our model. So you can think of us as like a full stack AI research and product company, if you will, right? But we have leveraged other compelling solutions if there were out there, absolutely, right? But yeah, and the way I think multimodal AI is headed, right now, most of the work that we see, like these multimodal LLMs, it's basically like a bunch of different modalities kind of tacked onto the fundamental framework of language models, right? Which tends to get very very expensive. You want larger models, or you want to spit out many thinking tokens before you output results. So generally what needs to happen in multimodal AI is just, I would say, if we were to fix like transformer and attention as our like go-to building blocks of these models, we need to figure out ways to for models to give how to give like certain amount of resources and attention to different modalities based on when and based on what it's seeing, or based on its prompt, right now. I think we're kind of delving into that. But and second, so that's kind of like an algorithmic
Well,
uh
I have a piggyback
yeah,
question.
yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, there's I'm at Humax right now. There's
Mhm.
like, the Pika Labs or the
Mm.
Runway ML, and then all these like it's like I don't know if they're defined as like consumer facing model, or they're just like, I don't know, like Hollywood grade model. Like, what's your thought on those kind of different type of like, I guess, models, and like what's the
Yeah.
differentiation? Because as a consumer, or like as someone who's like coming from a business background instead of like technical background, um like it's really hard to understand the, I guess, the behind the scene of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think, depending on, so for companies like 12 Labs, we have, I think, all at the end of the day, like we point to something similar called like world models, a
Right.
model that can like generate a really accurate representation of like our physical world, basically.
Mm,
And I think like, there are non-generative way of attaining understanding, and then I think like or generative way. I think this is more of a finding that we need to see, but I would say like in terms of building world models, first we need to define what that is, right? I think everyone has different definition, just like agent or super intelligence. Uh, but yeah, on the diffusion side of things, it's interesting, right? If the model can generate something compelling out of thin air, does that mean it has attained understanding? Um, Maybe, right? In some level, but the way I kind of see it is, based on like a perception and other sensory input data, let's say like humanoid robot, there
mhm,
are so many different scenarios where the next action could take place, right? And having accurately predict based on all this information uh, is very different than like kind of outlining what could happen like in a compelling manner, right? So
mhm,
I would say like real understanding will give you a at a high probability, like based on what you're seeing and what's surrounding you,
mhm,
what's the optimal action that you can take. um I think that's much harder problem that maybe, okay, based on what you see, draws or kind of like extend a couple frames and build some compelling content, right? Because like there could be many compelling content outcomes, but it might not be like the optimal, but it still makes sense, right? Um, so like you are kind of at the end of the day hallucinating into something compelling that feels a little bit detached from like attaining real understanding and like really making a bet. Um, but I think diffusion models have been making great progress. I think we're seeing some level of like understanding of physics and so on and so forth. So I think it's still early to tell. And in terms of like Hollywood grade or consumer grade, I think we see like two types of businesses, right? One is, uh, like your moonshot, like, hey, this Hollywood grade, content generation where it's like, you don't have to touch it. You just give it script and it just does it for you, right?
mhm,
So there's that moonshot, and then there's kind of like a co-pilot where it's not as like strong. It doesn't have as much agency, but
mhm,
you solve it via like UI UX basically, where you have the professional give it lots of hint, tell them like what to look for and what not to do. So yeah, I think those two are two compelling kind of routes, but we will probably see a lot more traction on the co-pilot
mhm,
for content building, like faster, right? It's easier to build, I would say. Um, but I'm rooting for the moonshot guys because we've also started as a moonshot project. We see the same thing for CodeGen too, right?
mhm,
Where we're fans of Cursor, and they're
mhm,
effectively kind of like that co-pilot for CodeGen, versus there are a bunch of frontier labs or startups that are working on like, here's the GitHub ticket, go and figure out everything, right? That like
mhm.
moonshot, like full software engineer um, type of workflows. But yeah.
Mm. I want to shout out to Howard. Howard's the VP of Nvidia. He said 12 Lab
Hey,
is one.
Howard. I know
He
Howard.
he said Howard was our past guest too. So he said 12
Yeah.
Lab is one of the best Inception partners. So
Mm,
shout out to Howard. Okay.
thank you, Howard.
So I wonder, so like, I mean, thinking about applying the multimodal and video generation API. So like there is, I mean, I could think of like there's enterprise people who are maybe like, I guess like the traditional developers of the world. There's like
Yeah.
sports organizations, there's like media entertainment company, there's data platform companies like a Databricks or Snowflake. And government agency like InQtel, like you guys have target so many wide range of audience.
Yeah.
And what's your thinking for more like building a model that can power all these different things? And like this is maybe back to the beginning, like when you guys raised, I believe like 100K or something, and then you can only power everything for
Yeah.
12 days. So but
Yeah.
nowadays there is Nvidia, there is DeepSeek, and then there's like some like other sophisticated, I guess, like um backend to support what you're building. And then how do you budget control or like just invest into these different sectors? And then do you
Yeah.
know one thing? And then since we talk about the three things you mentioned, search, embed, and generate, like do you build like the same API for like all these different products? And then how do you kind of like change, I guess, adapt into different specific sectors? And how do you kind of like
Yeah.
think about from like a business perspective?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good question. And I mean, it seems like 12 Labs is touching on a ton of different industries,
A
right?
lot.
But yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like media, entertainment, sports, ads, defense, right? But if you boil down what these customers from these different industries need, there are few really important but kind of overlapping capabilities that models need to display, right? Um, so if you really think about like, okay, like time code understanding, like temporal understanding is very important, and being able to hide, like in a very accurate manner, generate really dense captions or descriptions of identified scene. These are all, at the end of the day, it boils down to that really, really accurate temporal understanding of customers' large scale data. Um, so it's not like we're training new models for different industries, but being really, really careful of, because there are a lot of use cases within that industry, right? We're not powering all use cases from each industry per se, but it's mostly like semantic video search, or video question answering, or video reg, right? So you know knowing what are the set of model capabilities and product form factor that could power um, similar use cases, but from different industries, right? Which allows us to not only serve them, but also think about how we build like fine-tuning pipeline for different industries. So that's been working. That kind of framework of thinking worked really well for us. But we don't try to build everything on our own, right? We do realize that these companies from different industries already have ecosystem partners that they build partners that they already work with, right? So if the value of being able to search for things really quickly out of your million-hour asset is strong enough, right, our customers will kind of ask their build partner to integrate 12 labs and start building on behalf. So partner driven adoption has been really important pieces of 12 labs, and we are very careful who we partner with, right? So historically, like AWS and Nvidia have been great partners of ours, like OCI too. But then for very specific industries like media entertainment, I think you have a ton of digital asset management platforms, to media asset management platforms, to even dev houses now using 12 Labs to power their existing customers' workflow and just change that with better video understanding experience. And defense, right? Like, we want a democratic nation to lead in AI, right? Uncle Sam and his allies. And the best way for us to do that is partner with awesome partners like In-Q-Tel, where they they provide a very safe sandbox for us to like evaluate, deploy these models, and really test in real settings. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
For sure. I wonder, so like, how do you think about where to present? You mentioned about like you guys presented at like a
Mhm.
competition, and then how do you find out about like what is the thing where
Yeah,
does it go?
yeah. That's a really good question, right? Where to present? Usually, customers tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, like when we first started, we knew like we had to showcase what we've been working on in like academic settings, right? Because we didn't know better, right? So that's what we did, and it worked out. Uh, uh, but when you have one customer, two customer, 10 customers in certain industries,
Mhm.
they basically tell you, hey, you need to be in XYZ, like you need to come and present, right? And usually that is like the right move to make because right, because like they know 10, 15, 20 different companies that are similar to theirs who will be at the conference or something like that, and we just like present right, and then like and word of mouth travels quite quickly, so like we rely heavily on on our customers. So like Soyoung, our head of go to market, will like really ask like our customers, hey, we're still a small team, uh, but we do want to be able to like share what we've been working on together. Like, what would be the best venue for 12 Labs to represent this amazing work we're doing together? And they'll just give us a lot of advice where to be, right? And I think like genuinely, our customers have been very happy that there's some, Gen AI partner that's representative of their problem space. So it's really awesome to see all the support.
Love
Yeah.
that. Also, hi Christian. I want to say hi to the audience. Okay, I have
Yeah.
a question on like so since I feel like you are chased by investors nowadays, and like how when you first started, how I guess not first started, but like since like you guys become a popular company, how do you pick which investor to go after? Like if you're fundraising today, starting from scratch and then building 12 labs, how do you think about getting the first investor? And um as there's a lot of investors that are listening, how do they
Mm.
stand out in front of like a 12 labs? Like basically,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like any radical ventures, index ventures, these guys are fantastic, right? I think as a founder, you have a pressure to basically mesmerize them and teach them something new in your field. But I think partners that really care about like what you're building, like I think there's something that you can learn a lot from every meeting, right? um so for me, it's not just the fund itself, but I think partners are very important, right? um and there are many ways for you to be able to discern whether this partner actually cares about the company versus just like, oh, you guys seem like you're doing well, and let's just partner and see where it takes us kind of approach.
Mhm.
So like, you know, for I mean, I can give quite specific kind of examples, like Rob from Radical Ventures, Tiffany from NEA, right? you know
Mhm.
uh these guys are very practical but also dreamers. Sometimes like the kind of visions that I hear from them about 12 Labs like it excites me even more about the company, right? So and it's rare to find partners like that, I think. But as a first time founder, or if I were to do it again, I would like really hone in on that, right? And just get to know the partners as people, what their genuine interest lies, and why are you interested in video understanding and multimodal AI, right? Is it because of general trend? Yeah, as an investor, you need to be aware of the general trend, but like, why 12 labs? There could be, I don't know, 13 labs, right? So I tend to go pretty deep with that question. Yeah.
For sure. I want to be mindful of time. I have a quick 30-second fire round for you. What's your favorite book?
Ooh, it used to be super sophisticated ones, but like The Giving Tree is actually my favorite.
Love
I'm
that.
kind of becoming a giving tree.
Who who made the biggest impact in your career?
My parents.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Who would I invite to
Mhm.
at a dinner party? Oof, that's a good question. Too many. I'd say all of the 12 Labs team members.
Love that.
um,
Where can we find you outside of work?
Ooh, that's tough because I'm always in office or traveling. 55 Green Street. This is where you find me.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jay, for coming on the show today. It was a fun conversation.
Thanks, Grace. This is
Let
fun.
me